Hello, Pam Dubois with DMV Real Estate, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I'm so grateful to have with me today my special guest, Josh Cohen, and he's with DC First Properties and DMV Dealmakers. And Josh is going to share with us about flipping properties in the DMV area. First, Josh, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Sure. Pam, thanks so much for having me on the show.
Oh, you're very welcome.
This is an awesome place. Great experience.
Thank you.
So my story is a lot like a lot of folks here in probably the DC metro region. Grew up actually in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
Go Quincy Jones. That's my high school.
Oh, okay.
So I grew up, my dad was actually a sax player. Always wanted to play pro, but only did it part-time. It was like it was a hobby thing.
Okay.
So growing up, I was, my thing was constantly like, it was all about music. It was either music or engineering. Those are the two things I grew up with in Seattle.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was a hardcore engineer at Boeing. So for him, like both kids, my sister and myself, both had to be like big into math, physics, science, whatever. And if we weren't doing that, it was practicing music. So for my sister, piano, myself, the sax. And then I went from there, played in actually the #1 high school jazz band in the country in 1998.
That's great.
So our #1 graduate of our high school was Quincy Jones.
Okay.
And Clarence Acox is sort of a well-known name on the West Coast letter jazz band.
Okay.
The great Garfield High School.
Okay.
Went from playing jazz all the way through high school into college actually as well.
Oh, you did?
Played all the way through college, lead alto sax in the jazz band, toured all over the world playing. But still studied engineering, and I guess reality hit that one day I'd have to like have a real job. And make money. So studied engineering and ended up going to graduate school on a scholarship for that at Illinois.
Oh, okay.
And once I finished engineering school, like a lot of folks in the DMV, was recruited by the government to come out here.
Okay.
And work as an engineer.
That's how you got out here.
Came out here on a whim. I came out here one time for a research lab, not even 10 minutes from where we're sitting today. Back in 2004. Came here for one day, saw the place. They gave me the offer, and I was here like 3 months later.
Wow.
So June 2004, I came to DC. I think like a lot of folks, all walks of life come to DC from, you find like the most talented folks on the planet in the city.
Yeah, this is a great area.
It's a phenomenal area. So I quickly learned that I think a lot of folks, I was dissatisfied with my job.
Yeah.
I didn't see a future in it. 2004, you probably remember, the real estate market was super hot.
Yeah, it was a great time.
From the minute I got here, it was like not even 6 months later, I saw like all these folks running around DC, mostly on my weekends. Like I just observed that there were a ton of people making a ton of money.
Yeah.
And I saw myself sitting at this job for the government. I'm like, this is a good, cushy job, like long term, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I have a master's degree from probably the #2 engineering school in the country, and I'm living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
I'm driving an old beat-up car. I'm living in a really dingy old apartment. I'm like, I didn't think this is how it would all turn out.
Right.
So it was very discouraging. So from about 2005 or 6, I realized that I didn't want to be in this career forever, but I didn't really know what to do, and I sort of wanted to get into real estate, but didn't know really where to start. 2005, I dabbled in the mortgage field.
Okay.
And did mortgages sort of part-time as the market was like peaking out.
Yeah.
Made some money doing that, and sort of learned what I needed to know about mortgages, which was, especially when you're an investor, you really want to know how the loan process works.
Right.
So I understood like how people qualified for the loan, what their DTI ratios were going to look like, what the lenders were looking at, what seasoned assets meant, all the different terminology that goes into like lending that's important as an investor.
The mortgage language.
The mortgage side of it. So I learned what was important from that aspect. And then about 2006, I became a part-time realtor like a lot of folks do. Okay. But never sold. To this day, I've had a license that I've held on the side, but
oh, okay, so you still have your license?
I've sold this many properties in 11 years. Never really got the license to sell real estate. The long-term vision was always to be an investor.
Okay.
And so from coming here in 2004, it wasn't until 2008, I actually got caught in the craze. I bought a condo in downtown DC on an interest-only loan, 100% financing.
Oh, wow.
I called my dad up in Seattle. He's like, what are you doing? You're 25 years old. You're buying a $420,000 condo in downtown DC in Logan. He's like, you can't afford this. You just got a job. not even 6 or 12 months ago, I'm like, yeah, but you understand the market's crazy. The financing is 100% right now. I can get into this thing with no money down.
Anybody can buy at that time. Yeah, you were just, yeah.
So I bought a condo in end of 2004. I bought a condo for $429 in Logan, and by 2005 it had appraised at $520.
Did you sell it?
I refinanced at the peak. Fortunately, I would have foreclosed, but I refinanced 100% into a more stable long-term loan at the peak with, again, no money down. And it wasn't even like 6 months later, the market just tanked.
Yeah.
And then it went from 520 back down to 340, and I'm upside down.
Yeah.
And it was at that point I'm like, I'm gonna learn how to become an investor.
Yeah. Good for you though. That's a good point. You're just positive and keep going, even though you were in that situation.
So I'm living in that over-leveraged condo, upside down, paycheck to paycheck, and I find Sherman Raglan on Google.
Okay.
And Sherman Raglan's like the head of DC RIA.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't know where to start with investing, but this guy out in Bowie, he seems like he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Saw his videos. Actually went out to his program, and I pretty much signed up that day. That was like 2007 or 2008.
Okay, so that's how you got started.
That's how I got started.
Okay.
And then 6 months. It took me 6 months, 6.5 months until I did my first deal.
Okay. Wow.
Wow.
So, did you just keep going? I guess after the first one, you bought another one.
So basically, it's 2008. I did my first deal, and it started to become like an addiction. I'm still working for the government, and like a lot of people who first get into real estate, they don't really, you can do a deal, but it doesn't mean you're really a business or an investor.
Yeah.
So at that time, I was more of just a dabbler.
Yeah.
We were chasing deals, like it started by chasing deals like every weekend.
Yeah.
So Saturdays and Sundays we'd be going out here to PG County and Capitol Heights, District Heights, looking at properties, making offers on properties.
Okay.
And then that transitioned to like going out Saturdays and Sundays to every lunchtime, to every break at work, to before work and after work.
You're really into it. Yeah.
Really, it became like an addiction to go out and find deals.
Yeah.
But we really didn't have, at that time I was actually a partner with someone who I worked with in my day job.
Okay.
And we were just constantly chasing
Kept going.
Properties.
Yeah. Josh is very humble because he's got a lot going on right now, and you've got a team. Tell us about your team and what you know.
So actually, I spent 6 years part-time chasing deals, and I realized that, although we were really successful doing that, we did about 56 renovations part-time from about 2008 to 14, just in Falls Church. So I moved to Falls Church in 2008, got like a really beat down house through some of our marketing, and I ended up becoming like an investor in Falls Church from that point forward.
Okay. So
they always say invest in your backyard.
Right, yeah, you see, stuck with that area.
So originally in 08 I was chasing deals everywhere, and then we realized, we're only part-time right now. We only have so much time in the day to do stuff.
Yeah.
Are there deals in our backyard that can make us more efficient? So by around 2009 or 10, we stopped chasing deals in PG and Montgomery and DC and all these other places.
Yeah.
And we focused in purely only on Falls Church because that was where we could be most efficient part-time.
Okay.
And we ended up doing about 56 renovations through around 2014.
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
And then we completely burnt out from the business.
You did.
Completely burnt out. And I called my sister one day, and I'm like, we've made a lot of money doing this business, and we've spent a lot of time, and we've really mastered what we've done, but I'm done. I can't do it anymore. This business has just burnt me out. It's too much time. And we actually have a video on this, but she's like, Josh, she basically said, Josh, you're stupid. Just like,
really?
just like two children who are fighting in the sandbox, because that's how we've always been since kids. She's been the older, wiser one, and I've been the younger, immature one.
Don't say it.
So she's like, Josh, you know what? You're stupid. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you guys chased deals for 6 years.
Yeah.
But you never really had a business. You didn't have a business plan. You didn't have a business model. You didn't have a team. You didn't have systems. You didn't have process.
Stuff in place.
You had nothing to build around. So she's like, I can fix everything you've done. Like, give me like 6 or 12 months, and we can put a system in place. So 2014, we started all over again. We blew everything out. and I started a new business, DC First Properties, with my sister, who became my partner.
Okay.
And it was the two of us in the beginning in 14, and then from there she helped me build a team and a process and a system to grow.
Okay.
And so we've done that together for 5 years now.
That's great. So if someone was interested in flipping homes, how would they get started? What would you advise them to do?
So honestly, looking back, we got lucky. I think from when I started in 08, it was an easier time to start in some sense. It was hard in some sense and easier in others. So it was easy to find a deal because there were a ton of sellers and no buyers. Versus the flip side today is there's a ton of buyers and no sellers.
The market is,
the margins are really lean right now. Back then the margins were really big. I would strongly advise, looking back, that some of what we had going was luck because the margins were so big on the deals we got.
Yeah.
That if we made mistakes, we could recover from it. Today, you don't have the luxury of buying a deal and making mistakes and recovering because you're going into deals right now with really thin margins.
Yeah, it's a different market.
The best thing that I would advise anyone to do today is find the right mentor for what you're doing. So if you want to if you want to build new construction, or you want to be a developer, you want to be a landlord, or you want to be a commercial investor, like find the right mentor and there's a lot of people in this market that talk a big game.
Yeah.
And unfortunately there's a lot of them who don't have any fact behind their game. So you really want to vet who you're deciding to choose as a mentor. Go out and see their projects, go out and see their investments, figure out their process, who can vouch for them, do they have testimonials.
Yeah.
The good thing about real estate is that it's a lot of public record. It's a tangible asset. You can put your hands on it.
Yeah.
It's really easy to like vet people if you really put the work in, versus other types of assets. So find the right mentor who really is honestly doing what you want to do.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of that? Do you actually go down to the courthouse and check the records and things like that?
So when I started out, and we still do that to a little bit right now, but for years I was always looking at who are the companies that we want to be like, what are they doing right now, what are their buy prices, what are their rehab prices, what contractors are they using, how much are they selling for, where are they selling it at, what time of year is it going for that price, how are they staging their properties, what features are they adding. I did a lot. I'm a very analytical guy coming from an engineering background, so I would study the competition, or I would study like even where we want to go and see what do we need to do to get there. So we're still doing that to a huge extent, but definitely when you want to get into this game, and your goals are going to be different starting out than a more mature business, but figure out who you want to be like and add value to that person's business by maybe finding them deals.
That's important.
But find a great mentor.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process as far as the education process with all of it, basically, and trying to find out. Do you have ways that you actually are able to find like short sales, foreclosures, things like that?
So right now we're really big on, as your business evolves, sort of what you do changes. And the number one advice I can tell people looking back the last 11 years, the number one mistake most investors make, honestly, is they don't have a model. And they have a model, but it's not specific enough. So for example, today, we don't chase short sales. We don't chase pre-foreclosures.
Oh, wow.
That's not part of our model. Our model, honestly, 95% of what we do right now in 2019 is we decided if you want to look for affordable luxury homes, by that, if you want to buy a new house between $700,000 and $950,000, which for Falls Church, Fairfax County, is a pretty cheap price point.
Yeah.
If you want to buy affordable luxury homes, that's our model that we do.
Okay.
We're inside the Beltway. We're building, a lot of what we're doing is building new. It's built in a certain way, but a lot of the features are luxury. Every aspect of what we do is well defined. So we're buying, typically speaking, from a lot of older sellers who owe nothing on their properties. They've lived in these homes for 50 years. They've done nothing to the property. The house is pretty much a tear down. It's an 800, 900 square foot Rambler with no basement. Our model's really well defined: what we buy, how we fix it, how we sell it. When you want to get in the investing game, I strongly suggest you don't just chase a deal over here and chase a deal over there. Figure out exactly what you want to do, where you want to do it, how you want to do it. The more well defined we've gotten, the more successful we've gotten. So right now we're getting to the point right now where I believe in Falls Church, in our market, in our footprint, we're the #1 builder to talk to.
Really?
I believe we know more about Falls Church real estate inside the Beltway than probably any realtor, any investor, any builder that I know. And
that's good information.
And we're starting to get the reputation for that. And we've probably done more deals in that marketplace than anyone.
That's great. I'm so glad to have you on here then. You're going to be my go-to person for Falls Church. That's it. He's my go-to person for Falls Church now. Talk about a little bit about financing. If someone saw a property and, as far as sources for financing.
So your financing sort of evolves as your business evolves. So in the beginning, we were first starting out, we were 2 guys with literally probably 20 grand each a piece.
Okay.
And, we're like, how do we get in this business? How do we really get started? Honestly, looking back, I don't think I would start the way that we started. We started with 1 rehab. Our very first deal was a renovation.
Okay.
And looking back, I think that was highly risky. And we realized that after our first renovation that, maybe this wasn't the right way to go.
And that's how you learn through, right? You just go through and it's like mistakes are made and then you just learn from it and you move forward.
Exactly. So I would say we started with 1 renovation project. It turned out really successful for us. We made like 110 grand on our first flip in like 65 days.
That's great.
But I think a lot of it was also luck and good fortune.
Yeah.
We actually realized
and hard work. People always say luck, but
we didn't spend as much work as we should have on the first one, honestly.
Wow.
But we realized there was something about it that didn't feel right.
Yeah.
We spent a year after that wholesaling.
Okay.
And the reason we chose wholesaling was because we realized we didn't know enough about what we didn't know. We didn't know how to do proper due diligence on a property. We didn't know what to look for. By finding properties for somebody who did, it taught us a lot about, these are the sort of areas that can hurt you and be mindful of. So we spent a year after that wholesaling transaction. Instead, you're doing everything through signing the contract, but as soon as you have a signed contract,
you sign it?
You're assigning that contract to another investor. It could be me, could be you, could be him, for a fee.
Okay.
So you're charging a fee for another investor to take your place in the contract.
And that's still okay to do with all the
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Okay, that's good to know because I know with all the laws and all the crazy things.
It depends. It depends on the state. There are some exceptions that you need to be mindful of.
Okay. But it's okay, Maryland, DC, and Virginia.
You can't wholesale, for example, like a listing that you have.
Okay.
There's certain states where wholesaling, I believe, has issues.
Okay.
There's certain types of transactions you can't wholesale. REOs, banks will have carve-outs for not wanting you to wholesale their REOs.
You have to go through their process.
I strongly suggest you consult like a real estate attorney, but.
Okay. So you basically went from flipper to builder. Is that what you've done?
Flipper to wholesaler, back to flipper, and then builder.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So right now what you're doing is, like you're saying, buying the homes and just kind of tearing down and just
a lot of what we do is buying the home and tearing it down. We're also doing some major renovation projects. After 11 years of doing construction, I'm really big on renovation. I understand all the things that'll hurt you in renovation. So like we're doing, for example, like a 3,800 major renovation of an old home. We're actually renovating, if you know Munson Hill and Falls Church.
No, I don't.
The builder who built Munson Hill, it was about 50 or 60 homes, Mr. Thorpe.
Okay.
His family recently sold us his house.
Oh, wow.
So we're renovating Mr. Thorpe's sort of 3,800 square foot, for those days, probably mansion house.
Yeah, so that's a big deal.
Surrounded by all the homes that he built in the 50s.
Wow.
But we're really big on renovation still, but we're trying to really do mostly new construction if we can. It's more scalable. In my opinion, it's easier to manage.
Yeah. Now, do you have a lot of people working with you?
So our team today is myself as a president and co-founder, my sister as our COO and co-founder.
Okay.
We have a director of construction. We have a lead project manager.
Wow, that's great.
We have an acquisition manager, and then we have an ISA who answers our phones, internal sales agent.
That's great. So you actually hands-off kind of.
I'm not really hands-off, to be honest with you. I'm actually, our biggest thing, which I think holds most construction companies back, is the construction management, that piece.
You have to be right in there.
Honestly, what I'm trying to work on right now is, and I hired my original mentor for construction to help us now as a consultant. We're trying to figure out what we're missing that the bigger companies have.
Okay.
And what really takes you from like a small rehabber to a major developer is your process, organization, and documentation of how you build. So we're trying to put in processes and policies to make us more efficient as a builder.
A bigger business plan, in other words.
Like if you're building, for example, like 10 houses at a time, you really need the proper documentation, scheduling, policies, checkpoints for paying your subs. All that stuff has to be in place on paper.
Right.
Your subs have to understand it. They have to abide by it, follow it. If you don't have that, you can't scale. At least as a construction person, as a construction company, scaling becomes impossible if you can't control your contractors.
Okay.
Which most people honestly cannot.
Yeah.
Most people cannot control their contractors.
Yeah, that would seem like a big job to just control the contractors. Yeah.
I honestly think in this type of business, failure or not earning the money that you want is because of the contractor. You make your money when you lock in the deal, but you lose all that money when the contractor shows up, or you end up making very little. And there's actually one major issue that there's one mistake that everybody makes with their contractor, typically speaking. They don't define the scope of work properly.
Okay.
If you're my framing contractor and you come to me, we interview you for the job, or let's even say the GC. Let's say I'm a beginning flipper, and you're the general contractor.
Okay.
If I don't tell you how to go from start to finish on the entire flip, every little detail of that flip, then I haven't done my job as the owner of the property correctly. Right. If I can't tell you that, Pam, you're gonna demo that wall over there, you're gonna demo these walls, you're gonna clean up the flower bed. If I haven't laid out every major event, every major milestone, getting us from A to Z,
every detail,
then I'm a bad owner, and I have no business hiring you.
Yeah.
And the mistake that most people make is that they're like, Pam, I need you to do a job for me. Everybody does this.
Just throw them in there.
Pam, I need you to renovate that house over there in Camp Springs.
Yeah.
Can you do it for 50 grand? Everybody makes that mistake. Pam, can you do that renovation over there for 50 grand? And next thing you know, there was no expectation as far as, what part of the renovation are they doing?
Yeah.
What kind of kitchen cabinets are they putting in there? How many bathrooms are they renovating? What type of tiles going in those bathrooms? What type of vanities? Where are they going? How high are the light fixtures going to hang in those bathrooms? Is it a shower? Is it a curb? Is it porcelain tile? Is it 30 cents a foot tile, or is it $5 a foot tile? If you haven't laid out the whole project for your contractor, you have no business even talking to a contractor.
But a lot of people probably do that.
Everybody does that, honestly, especially when they're starting out.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake you can make is not defining your scope of work, not defining the schedule, not defining the payment milestones, not really vetting those people that you're hiring. And if you don't do all that, you may not get hurt on the first project, you may not get hurt on the second or third, but I can guarantee you if you're in this business for the long haul, you're going to get really hurt.
It's going to happen.
Something's going to happen to you that's really going to hurt you badly.
Yeah.
We all go through that. I've gone through that in my learning experiences. But that's what really separates the big companies from the people who dabble.
The smaller ones, people that just buy them and just throw somebody in there. If you were to leave us with some advice moving forward, we're at the end here, and this went by so quickly. We're going to have him back. Yeah, you're going to have to come back.
That was super fast.
Yeah,
oh my God.
It was super, super fast. But just some, like 3 things that you would give advice, I guess, for somebody that actually wants to go in and invest in property. I guess your advice has been great so far, everything, and we're going to have to have you back.
My biggest advice, honestly, would be figure out exactly what you want to do. And honestly, it's hard to say that from the very beginning because nobody really knows what avenue they want to pursue. A lot of people have the butterfly syndrome where Pam says she's doing apartment buildings in Pittsburgh and she's making all this money, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I'll do what Pam does.
Yeah.
And Josh over says he's, great at the rehab thing over here in Falls Church. I'll go hear what Josh has to say. But, everything can make money with the right scale and the right process. Everybody can be successful at what they want to do.
Yeah.
From day one, figure out exactly what you want to do, define it, put a model around it. Because if you think about it, people are really successful in business, but most of them that get into real estate all of a sudden become, it's funny how it is because I've seen a lot of investors do this, they get just stupid overnight when they get into real estate. It's all of a sudden like everything they've learned from every other walk of life, they forget about it, and they're just suddenly just buying a property over here and buying a property over there there's no rhyme or reason behind what they're doing. So really define your business, really define your model, figure out who your mentor should be or what company you look up to. If you want to get into our line of work, really understand the construction. Most people who want to be rehabbers, they look at HGTV shows on TV. The number one thing that you can really look at is the 2012 IRC building code. Look that up, learn it, read it, study it, go to those classes, because if you don't even know the first thing about contracting, that's going to be very hard for you to manage your contractor.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being on here with us. We greatly appreciate your time.
Thanks
and again,
so much.
You're going to have to come back. We're definitely going to have you back. We will be here again next Wednesday from 1:30 to 2 o'clock, and we look forward to having an appraiser that is working in DC and Virginia. And again, Josh is going to come back and join us. Right, Josh?
Thanks so much for having me.
You're
Thank
welcome.
You so much.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Have a great week. Have a great holiday weekend.